about our first film. Not watching, but making. Because we need to be very specific on that. So, let me start here to my right, and let's have the panel introduce themselves to us.
Oh, right, SWFF. Hey, my name is Maya Mudge. We are part of the B&L Entertainment, and today we are booking and also casting for new projects. If you guys are interested.
My name is Jax Price, and I'm a filmmaker that's here for my experimental film Ghost Socket, which is screening tomorrow in the experimental block number 2.
Yeah, I'm Jim Adams. I'm moderating the panel. I'm also a local actor here in Atlanta. Yeah, I heard someone say if you're interested, yeah, I'm always interested in projects. So keep in mind. And let's keep it moving here.
I'm Cameron Hale, and I'm here with our film Entropy.
I'm Scott Hale. I wrote and produced Entropy and also starred in it.
So that's for the Hale House.
That's what it is.
Very sir. All right. So we're talking about our first film. So let's go back to my stage right. Sorry. Tell us a little bit about your first film as a director, producer.
Well, our first film that we produced though is Dawn of the Angel, and it's not here. It was released way back, and new projects coming up, and we casting new stunts, actors, and also crew as well too. And we're seeking any kind of talent. And also right now at another production, they are wanting me to actually cast 5 actors for Monday, if you guys are interested. And also the catch though is you have to know how to do basic salsa.
Basic what?
Salsa dance.
Salsa.
For me, it's quite a story. Before I even became a filmmaker or wanted to get into the movie world, I was playing basketball my whole life, and I wasn't putting time into it at all. Wasn't interested, and before I just wanted to get into acting, so I started acting first. Did stage plays, and in 2014, I remember I was put into like a feature film, very low budget. It's called The Town Inside, and it's on Amazon Prime now. And after that, I was like, well, gee, what am I going to do now? What else am I going to act in? I had no clue, And it wasn't until 2015 when my mother took me out to LA, mostly because she had business going on there. And we spoke with one of the producers at General Hospital. We had like a little lunch. And she's like, so, what are you doing? Like, what do you want to be? I'm like, I really don't know. I'm just acting, kind of, not really that much. And she's like, well, my daughter, sometimes she just makes stuff on her phone and moves around and, doesn't take it seriously. I'm like, So then we flew back to Florida, which is where I'm from, South Florida. And I'm just like, you know what? I want to tell my stories to the whole world, and I want to be a director. I want to be a filmmaker. And, oh gosh, I had been studying Chinese in high school. I didn't become fluent, and my first film was actually in Mandarin. It was all in Mandarin. And it was just this high school kid just sitting in his room with a pencil, notebook, paper, and just writing literally the scripts. In Mandarin, literally, like the characters and stuff. And then I was like, oh man, I'm not sure about this one. This is just going to be ridiculous. It's going to be silly. And before you know it, I played in it myself as all these different characters. And the film was called China Haunting, which was supposedly about a Chinese demonic spirit that haunts this Englishman or whatever that takes away his language and stuff. And I was using like cheesy effects from the apps in the App Store. I filmed an iMovie on an iPhone 5, and it was ridiculous. And what made it even more ridiculous was the fact that I'm filming it in this rich Boca Raton neighborhood in my backyard. theaters, and everybody's looking at me wearing these silly costumes, like, what's this kid doing? Doing out in the middle of the high, wearing this scary costume and everything. It just didn't fit. And, you know, after that, I posted on my YouTube, which I first made, which was Jack's First Films. And it was 15 minutes, and I was surprised at how cool it ended up looking. And that's when my dad was like, you know, well, I think you found your passion. I said, gee, no kidding, I think I did too. So, and from there, I just wanted to keep making movies, horror and sci-fi movies, and now I've been doing it for 6.5 years so far. So I can't imagine what the heck I would be doing right now if I didn't find my passion for filmmaking or if I didn't take that step. I think if I was still playing basketball today, I'd have no idea like what I'd be doing with my life, because filmmaking is literally like one of the only things that's, you know, making me happy. So yeah. So always find your passion, you know, even if it like doesn't come to you right away, just dig deep, really dig deep. Like just find that diamond that's underground, you know, and just don't stop, don't give up. So that was my first film. An iMovie film that was filmed in a Boca neighborhood.
Technically, my first movie was made when I was a kid, too. I had actually started acting in kindergarten and then went up the whole theatrical chain up into the pros, so I've been doing this a long time. But I had a passion for monsters. Hard to figure that one out. That's what my podcast is all about. And for the last 6 years, that's what I've been talking about. I was a monster kid growing up. I ended up sort of hijacking my father's 8mm camera and became the official family photographer. And I got the idea, I'm going to make movies. I can do this. So it was a silent 8mm film. It ran 10 minutes, and it was called The Alien. And it was about a monster from another planet landing and kidnapping my little sister, who was not very impressed with the film we were making because we had to cover her ketchup because it got very bloody. She wasn't crazy about that. But we had all the neighbor kids involved with it. And so I think I still have a copy of it somewhere. Or maybe I know I translated it over to VHS. That tells you how old I am. So I was floating around somewhere. Didn't win any awards or anything like that, but yeah, Jackson, the minute I stepped on stage for the first time at the age of 5, I fell in love with the business. As I got into monster movies more and more, it opened up the door for other genres of film, and then I found myself just being totally addicted to the genre of any kind, just film in general, telling stories through film. It wasn't until probably about 8 years ago that I actually got to direct a film. That was for the 48-hour film project. And I directed television and stuff like that. At that point, but I hadn't really done a real film. So we did a film called Turn the Other Cheek, which Kevin Powers was my DP. That's what I sort of hoping he'd sit in with us on this one. He can tell you how he screwed that film up. I needled him all the time. But apparently, we had an editor who had a version of Final Cut that only accepted standard definition. And Kevin shot the first 10 minutes of the film in high def, so it didn't translate over. So we were able to get screen caps off of it. So a major part of this open expository part of the film, we had to do very creatively with still pictures. But it worked. We didn't win, but the movie turned out pretty well. And just recently, I finished a documentary, well, a couple years ago, on Operation Desert Storm, that incorporated footage that a buddy of mine who was over there had shot some sequences on VHS, an old VHS camcorder, and then they were sending the tapes back to his wife and to some of the other wives. He had called me, not really, I mean, he knew I was involved with acting and that sort of thing, but he called me and said, can you translate or transfer VHS tapes of the DVD. And I said, yeah, I mean, it's a little time consuming, but I can do it. He's a good friend, and I don't mind doing it. So he sent me 32 tapes, all filled to the brim. I had no idea what these were until he said, yeah, these are films we shot. And he was a frontliner. He was one of the guys that went out there. He was trained in chemical warfare and that, so they were looking for the kind of weapons that Saddam Hussein had used earlier. As I got watching these VHSs, I saw a love story, because this was his love story to it. The woman who he would marry. They had just started dating when he volunteered to go to Desert Storm. And so that's what the film really centers around, their relationship in the midst of this war footage, and it's some pretty grisly stuff. They were right up there with the action was. And then how it affected them, and in a negative way, but how they turned that around to a positive. To make a long story short, they ended up mentoring and fostering more than 300 children over this time period after he came back, and they're still mentoring and fostering, and have adopted 6 kids of their own from this fostering program. So it's a very uplifting film. We're still looking for a distributor. It's hard to find a distributor for documentaries, so we're not going to give up. But that has, fired it up again. I've got 6 or 7 scripts I want to produce. Trying to make before my days come to an end. So yeah, you get that passion. It's hard to get with that fun. So I've gone out and bought it up over many years. Next up is Scott.
Camp.
Oh, you're Camp. Oh, yeah. How about we're going to fix that in both?
We're like the same person.
Yeah.
This is Camp or Camp or Scott.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So move on. Your first film.
So my first film really derived from, our Aunt Mary, and she would let us watch horror movies, well, specifically me, because my mom didn't really care when you watched at all, right? So, I had to see everything I wanted to watch.
Boy, sounds so resentful.
Just a little bit. But anyway, so my Aunt Mary, and she would have like Night of the Living Dead on, and then of course Chucky at one point. Scotty's in his room one day, he's watching Day of the Dead, so I got the book early. And I think I was like, I don't know, we're like 12. I was like 12, so we were probably like 20. But we had one of those like really cheap, like $50 consumer grade cameras that I think it was my mom and my sisters at the time. But it had a video function on it. So we're like, all right, let's make something. So we got together. We got like my cousin Cody, and we made our version of Halloween, which was a blood pumpkin. And so it was a pumpkin masked killer, and we totally used music from Shutter Island, and YouTube didn't flag it yet. It's probably still up there. But yeah, so that was
Cam, the secret is you get music from a crappy film that nobody cares about.
yeah, we did that.
It was crappy.
Yeah, and even that, right?
Don't even say that.
But then of course that like leads off until we made something like
Blood doll.
Blood Doll, yeah, which was like a little Santa doll that my mother had, which was younger.
Theme here.
Yeah, exactly.
Blood witch.
Yeah, the Blood Witch never happened. Blood Doll was even finished. We shot one day. I was like, this sucks. And so we kind of hung it up for a minute, and Scotty went off to be a social worker, and I went to school for nursing at first, and then I segued into criminal justice, and I was worked as a corrections cadet thing for like a week. And I was like, I just want to make movies. Like, what am I doing? And so, I went back and I got and where I'm from, Cincinnati, they have UC Blue Edge, which is like a media technology program, which is kind of like their film school. So I went off and did that, and me and Scotty were doing a podcast, and we're like, why don't we just make our own movie? Like a legit feature film. And we just did it. But it all came from sneaking and watching movies, and, mother denying me the greatest films until she found out I was watching. She can only let me not watch it for so long. It's like, I already seen it, Mom. Look, it's done. Exactly.
The box is open.
The box is open. It's a floodgate now, which just leads off to even worse films. So so that's kind of what happened. having to. So don't let anything tell you no. But hey, that's
I mean, I think you have.
yeah, it's not
I
something.
mean, I think for
Yeah,
us,
that's a we're out of time.
Yeah,
I think for us, it was something we wanted to do for a very, very long time. And like Cam said, we just reached a point where it's like, screw it, let's just do it. Let's write something that, we know we have some limitations when it comes to like finances and talent and things like that. So let's just do the very best that we can with what we have. But I think once we committed to it, other people saw our commitment. And then all of a sudden the cast, which was just supposed to be family, started actually turning into actors from Cincinnati, and then connections were formed. And so, yeah.
There we go.
All right, so the biggest challenge, first film, or early film, or whatever, the various aspects of filmmaking, what do you find to be the biggest challenge? Or sort of rank them from your experience as to the hardest of some of those parts of making films.
Finding locations, that is a trip. So, especially with low budget, that if you have connections, it's always the best. If you don't, ask friends or friends to a friends to a family. And then suddenly you're in debt of owing a lot of people at the end of the year. And of course, when the year started, they messaged me, it's like, hey, you know that location that I sent you to that's free? So even though, like I was saying a second ago, I need to cast 5 people, and I'm over there with them, I find locations. So with Dawn Angel, what's so easy about that location is that we went to Lexington. I have my business partner downstairs where he knows a friend of a friend, even though it's like, Lexington, Georgia's like an hour, or maybe an hour and a half. But we shot most of the stuff there, and it takes us 6 months we actually hire a stunt person to come in. But he was so great about him that he said he'd do it for free, but guess what? I owe him a debt. So, and then doing Kobeck, he's like, hey, I need 20 actors. I was like, this is doing Kobeck, how am I going to get 20 actors? It's like, that's going to be impossible. But of course, things works out. And then we do, like Stone Mountain. We went up there, we find out that you gotta have what? A permit. So we thought we could sneak the other side of the mountain. No, that didn't work. So we had to call what? A friend to a friend to owe another debt. So to answer your question, location is easy. Well, yes and no, but if you owe debts, it's easy.
Gee, if I had to rank it in my ranking, number one, it's definitely writing for me. I hate writing so much perfection. But, if you want to make a film happen, like, you have to write, obviously. And I'm not one of those people that just can't sit there at my desk for hours and just try to think so hard. Like, I would just write one sentence, like the title of one sentence, like, a man gets in his car and rides off, ... What now? I'm like, all right, I gotta stop. I guess I gotta let my brain refresh. It's funny because I'll be doing something else, and the idea or whatever I wanted to write will like come to me. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing and go back and write it. So writing's hard. Number 2, it's definitely finding people. That's not always easy because it's like after you finish the script, or you gotta like find out like who's gonna be committed. And, who's going to show up for you, who's going to do this for you, who's going to do lighting for you, who's going to do everything. Definitely finding the crew is number 2 for me. And number 3, locations.
So, debt in the debts.
Exactly.
You need actors, give me a call.
Well,
How many days I'm going to put in my plate?
Yeah. But number 1, writing will always be like my weakness, but that's okay because, I rewrite, no matter how long it takes me until I finally get what I need. Well, depends on if I'm on a deadline.
Yeah.
So that's a struggle.
It's funny, I love the writing part. That's one of my favorite parts. I was, as a senior in high school, taking senior English, I entered a short story competition. I had an English teacher I hated. I don't think she cared much for me either. But she told me, in no uncertain terms to the end of the school year, that I did all right in English. But she said, don't ever make your living writing or speaking. And and 30 years as a person on the air, on the radio. And I'm still on the air and doing a podcast. So, you know, I've always wanted, hoped she would show up for one of my reunions so I could say it. But no, the writing part, the early scripts that I wrote, the first few scripts I wrote, yeah, I can understand you just can't sit down and write the dialogue. So I would get a scene in my head, and I just couldn't get rid of it. I was like, God, this is the coolest scene in the world. And all of a sudden, the story would fashion itself around that. Whether it was like, one script that I wrote, this is about like the third script I ever wrote, I knew how the film ended. I had no idea about anything else. I just knew how it ended, and I had to write the story up to the ending. So it's funny how that happens. You just get that inspiration. So that part, I've never minded. The only hard part is getting that inspiration sometimes. You just, boy, I really need a good idea for a film. Sometimes when you watch something, I mean, not that you're stealing someone's material, but something that will spur your mind. The first script I ever wrote, I was at a play here at the Fox Theater, and it was called, I just blanked on the name. Anyway, it was a very well named, very well known play about, it was Roger's College, I think it was right in the middle of the play, I got an inspiration from that play, and I ended up basically writing there in the theater in my head. With my friends saying, this is a great play, and I'm like, I didn't know it's at the end of the play. So that part I like. I think the locations are really difficult, especially if it's integral to the story. So I got into the habit of writing scripts that I could get away with murder on, and I didn't need a fancy location. I could do maybe in my house or apartment, I'm in an apartment now, or something, you know, any way that I didn't have to worry about asking. It seemed like I always wrote hospital scenes in my movies. You try getting a hospital room, I mean, it's like pulling teeth. We've made 2 films in the last 10 years where we were able to get one for just one little scene. But yeah, that stuff was rough. You call in a lot of markers on that one. I think the casting part is the part that's the hardest for me. Because you usually have somebody in mind when you're writing. Or, and maybe not a specific person, but a type of person. And so you're looking for that person. And then you find the person that fits that bill perfectly. And you get your cast together. And then it's like you said, the reliability part. You know, because if you're doing a low budget film, we're doing a film where you're paying them on the back end. It's a whole lot different than you give them a contract up front. They prioritize it, and really have all that. That can really mess you up, especially if maybe you shot 2 days of them, and then they decide, I changed my mind. It's like, that's a lot of time and effort down the tubes. So that, and the crew is the same thing. You've got to have some integral crew members there, right? I think most of us can probably make it a very minimal crew if we have to, but it's still, there's just some things you can't quite plan. So I sort of put the cast and the crew up toward the top and then work from there. It's a challenge all the way around, but then you got to make it all come together. I think, I don't know, if you're not editing your own material, you've got to find a good editor. Because that can make or break a film as well. The first film I was talking about, the 48-hour film project, we had an editor that was a questionable quality. I would say maybe not quality, but reliability. I mean, if you're not familiar with the competition, you've got 48 hours to write, produce, and finish a movie. It's a 7-minute movie, but I mean, it's a 7 minutes piece of cake. Not at all. And my editor, right in the middle of it, on early Sunday morning, he still wasn't finished, and it had to be in their hands by 5 o'clock. I still had to be rendered and everything. And he said, I'll be back in a few hours. I got to go help my grandmother move. It was like, do what? So you never know what you're going to walk into on that. So, the people part is, it can be the hardest thing. I've read about it.
Biggest challenge? I don't really have one. Everything
Get
would
out of here.
No, I mean,
Get out of here.
with injury,
We call shenanigans.
We call you down now. Whatever.
we ran into a casting issue because we originally, we self-financed replacement actors, Miranda Neiman and Haley Sunshine, who ended up being phenomenal, and they were recommended from Ben Rigney, my DP over there. I shot a music video for him, and we met a man named Willie Newton, who was just a PA on that shoot. But he ended up becoming a really good friend, and he just happened to be going to acting school because he wants to be a director, so he was just learning how to talk with actors and everything, and that's how he met them. So, and incidentally, he worked in my building at work as a volunteer, so I work at a hospital. So I was like, oh, hey, Will, by the way, like, I don't really have actors right now. He's like, oh, I got you. I got these 2 things. They're going to be amazing. And I was like, okay, cool. And they were amazing. Yeah. So, like, that was kind of like an issue, but then it wasn't.
Because the school schedule location.
And then in terms of like locations, we wrote intro beats to the locations we had. So
Yeah.
it's not like we didn't run into issues there really. We changed location when my cousin Cody didn't really want us to use his house too well. So we're like, okay, cool, like we'll just shift gears to my wife's parents' house. So, smart. Yeah, so it worked out good. But I challenge, I guess, I mean, because I directed it, I edited it, so like I didn't have to worry about anything on that end. Was maybe do a pre-production, just make sure everything fell into place. Because I mean, we lost a location for like a day. We lost some of our actors for like 2 days, but it all kind of just fell right back into place. So we got really lucky on this. But I guess pre-production would be the most challenging. Let's say is make sure all your dots are signed. You know what I mean?
It's the most important.
Yes. Like if you don't have a good pre-production, me and Ben would talk on the phone for like 4 hours a night and just going over everything. So by the time we got on the set, we pre-lit the set. Since we had access to everything, we used family. We used Scotty's house. We used my car. It all just worked out. So, but I guess I would say pre-production.
Now, the conflicting opinion on the same subject is
Most difficult thing. Probably working with him, I guess.
I'll take it.
I was wondering if you could say that. Back over there, give out location again.
I'd say maybe initially I would have said directing. I didn't direct Entropy. We are like co-directors now on everything moving forward. But when we tried to direct in the past, it was hard for me to imagine some of these things in my head. But after doing a lot of post-production work and editing everything together, it's a lot easier to see those like disparate pieces in my mind. But I guess if anything was the most challenging, I'd say probably just time itself and time management. Like you can have everything planned out, scheduled to a T, but some people will inevitably go wrong or to be shifted to a day or a scene or recut. So I think that was probably the most challenging thing for me. But at the same time, I think it was a good thing because there were a lot of scenes that got changed because of time, but we had to be creative, so they actually ended up being a lot cooler than they were initially on the page. So, time.
Well, let's talk about the directing part of it. Just the directing part of it. You got your location, you got your people. First film, first time you've worked with actors, try to roll them and tell them what to do. What did you find as the most interesting and the most educational way of directing your first film?
My first film, that Dawn the Angel, taught the actors easy actually. Now, actually, I learned not to hire siblings that you're not dealing with at home anyway, because they always want like, hey, I want lead role. No, you're not getting lead role. You're getting the role cashier. And also don't cash your best friend either, because guess what? Best friend wants lead role too. And I was like, no. So talk to actors is two different things on conversational wise, but directing them is to know the key to do it. Because sometimes, like you said, when you vision in your head and you're trying to direct actors what to do and stuff like that, it's a little bit different. So what I do is just, as a director, I always get my first AD to handle it. So, and I was like, okay, this is what I want, go fix it. And then also on that, if he's like, okay, what if I see it this way? No, we shoot my way. Just go there and talk to him, and that's how I handle how to my actors. Because directors usually do less to know that, because they tell. That's why you have your first AD.
Yeah, you can over-direct. You see a lot of movies where that happens.
Well, after a couple of years of making films at high school, just myself in the backyard, it wasn't until really 2019 when I got into college, and it was this 30-minute short sci-fi sci-fi cyberpunk film I made. It was the first time I ever had like 10 different people in it that I had to rely on. And I was actually pretty nervous because I was like, man, okay, now this is the real deal. I've never handled like actual people before, or like handled this many people before. And I don't know, I guess a couple of things I learned is that, I mean, like I said, reliability pretty much. And just actors sometimes, like, they can help you occasionally if they have an idea or two, but you don't want to necessarily let them take over your whole production, because there was one guy that was trying to take over the production, and I didn't yell at him or anything, and I was like, you know, hey man, I appreciate the ideas and suggestions, but you know, I'm the one that's like, alright, so I gotta do it. And I guess another thing about directing actors is probably just, you know, make sure you go over a line with them as many times as you can.
Or if you don't have any, send it to your AD.
Yeah, they're not going to understand it, or they're not going to understand you, and just really just take your time with them. Like, don't rush them at all. Make them feel comfortable too. Don't get them upset. Make sure they're not too tired, which I know it does happen. Actors do get tired, and they will get cranky, and you know, you got to make them comfortable again. You got to try your best to motivate them. Like, hey, we're almost done. Don't worry. It's the end of the night. It's late. You can do it. And I feel like the thing I learned about that is that when they get tired and cranky and they have this dramatic part that they got to say, or this angry line that they have to say, they actually do their best in their It's like, yep, all right, that's the one. That's a wrap. Let's go home now. But yeah, that's definitely, you know, one thing I learned. So, yeah.
You hit on a good point, how you can let it get out of control. I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I won't say I was a prima donna when I first really started directing. I started directing in the theater, so I was relatively young compared to the people that these people were used to having direct them. I went in, even if I didn't know what I was doing, I pretended like I did. I mean, you know, because that's some of it you are learning as you go. For the first project out, anyway, I didn't want to be a tyrant, but I know it could be a buddy. You know, you can be friendly, can be likable, but they have to know where the line is drawn. Because, yeah, you're right. I mean, you get these people that all of a sudden, if you let one sort of say, well, you know, why don't we do this and that, then someone else thinks, now they're emboldened to say, well, he did it, I can do it too. You know, then next thing you know, you're out of control. So it's pretty much, I only had to have there's one director speech with a few casts. Where we just got that out front saying, you know, this is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and I am the dictator. But you don't have to be mean, but it's just sort of like, we don't have time for a discussion here. A lot of the discussion, when I've been in a rare situation where you have a lengthy pre-production schedule where you can actually have a sit-down read with your cast and stuff, and you can work out a lot of those issues ahead of time and let them know we're doing this because we can't do it on set. But you like to give your folks freedom, but again, there's a line drawn because they only see their part. They don't see, you know, and I hate it's not sort of the overall picture, the big picture. Because you as the director have to see how the whole story comes together. They've got a little element in that, and that's not the same. Is what so they may think you're asking them to do something that's not right in their mind, but it's like in relationship to the entire story, if they could see the whole story finished, they would understand. And there's a matter of trust there that you have to develop with them. It's like you've got to make sure they know you know what you're doing. Even if you don't think you know what you're doing, they've got to believe that. There have been a few, I have more than stage productions that I directed in the films. More than a few times where I was like, man, I hope I know what I'm doing on this thing. And then all of a sudden the inspiration would come and go, yeah, that's it. You know, you don't let them know that just happened. I'm just like, thank you. you know, get an idea that works really well. So, I think that's a big part. Without being, we've all probably been on, and for actors here, we've all been on a set where the directors are a little jerk. And just just do it. And those sets don't do well, and those movies don't do well.
Yeah.
So there's a real fine line you gotta walk. Okay, Cam, closing this guy.
All right. For me, for directing actors, it all comes down to pre-production, where you find the actor, and then with Scotty's scripts, a lot of the characters' motivations are, because Scotty writes novels as well, self-published novels, so our scripts are very detailed in the sense of like what emotions are being conveyed and how we want you to play it within the narrative of the film. So by the time they read the script first, we talk through the character, talk through what emotions is she going to be going through, or he, depending on the character. And at that point, we'll have maybe 1 or 2 script readings, and then we'll kind of really get the fine points in. But I kind of fall into the camp where, like, we know what the character needs to be. We've had that conversation with us, with the actors, but they're also living with the characters, like, way more, like, intimately than we are. So we're very open to allowing them to have an interpretation where we might rework a scene because they come up with something better. And with Entropy, that happened quite a bit, where there was just little character traits or how maybe they want to change the scene a little bit to kind of fall more in line with what the overall narrative was. Because as long as the end goal is clear, I don't really care how we get there, as long as the end goal is where we need it to be and it's the best it can be. So for me, directing actors it's almost just lining them up and then just kind of letting them go. So like with Entropy, there was a couple scenes where I would let them go, and if it wasn't where I needed to be, then I would step in. But 9 times out of 10, because we've had all those conversations, even if they deviated a little bit, it would still work and it would become more organic. Where it's not like they're just learning the script or learning the lines. We let them just have to find the character a little bit more organically to give them more like personable performance. Okay. So that's kind of how I would. Wow.
He's a tough act to follow, isn't he?
What was the question specifically?
Directing actors.
Directing actors.
Yeah, where is it? Wake up.
I'm not really a director, really. I just write the things. There you go.
Pass it along.
I did do some writing.
Thank you.
Some directing on our second feature that we're making right now, which is like a horror anthology. And I think for me, with working with the actors, it's like writing novels where you're trying to lay down kind of a clear path to go, right? Details and characterization and plot points, and I think
Sounds familiar.
if you're paying attention to it, you'll notice when things go wrong, when there's a bump in the road or there's something missing. And so I think being able to sit down with the actors and kind of see where those bumps are, where you need to hit those beats to make everything just flow naturally. I think is really important. But yeah, that's basically what Cam already said.
So next conversation.
So next time you say ditto. Okay, I'm trying to think. I'm going to open this one up to you four about any elements of making a film that we may not have covered in this particular conversation. That you're just like, yeah, I wish you asked that question.
How do you guys go about finding distribution?
Oh, God, good question. It's tough. No, I've been doing this for the last 2 years. We found a distributor for our film Storm, the documentary was made about. And it was lined up, it was an LA distributor. They wanted a little bit more of a percentage than I liked, but we'd never done a film. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to pay a little bit more to get the track on. These guys had a good rep and all that. They were asking us to do an awful lot that I thought they should have been doing. But again, I was willing to go so far. That was just coming down to big COVID hit, and everything just shut down. I mean, everything shut down for, still not really all the way back. So we started shopping around, trying to get it on Amazon Prime, some of these streaming services. I went through 8 months of back and forth with Amazon Prime on a technical issue that they claimed our film had that it didn't have. And to the point where I did get a little bit of a jerk by saying, how old are you? Because I've been doing this since the early 80s, and I don't know what you're telling me is wrong with this movie about this sync here or that, because you're full of crap. You know, what you're saying does not make sense in any filmmaking genre that I've ever spoken over the decades. So finally says, oh, by the way, we're not accepting documentaries. I guess I should have told you that. This is 8 months later. But apparently they are not accepting any documentaries. They didn't just come up with that. But it's like, so we were strung out for almost a year with these people. You know, it's just maddening. And then looking for then video on demand services or something where we could at least get, you know, ones where they would produce a Blu-ray upon, you know, upon order or whatever. And you've got to really be careful on these folks. There's some bad ones out there that will soak you, and if you're not careful, will own your film permanently.
Yeah.
And then if it is a success, you're sitting there watching somebody else do well on your movie and take all the credit for it. So. Distribution's a tricky business. It's not like it was 14 years ago. I mean, when I really started getting into this in the Atlanta area around 2005, 2006, you know, there were people like Lionsgate and stuff. Man, if you brought them a pretty decent film, they bought anything. Everybody wanted material, but it's not that way anymore. It's not that way anymore.
With Entropy, when we were still editing, and we got a email from a company, and I won't give the name because I don't know how accurate what I'm about to say is, but we were very excited, and we're like, oh, they're interested, this is pretty cool. The movie's not out, there's no trailer yet, what? How do they even know? Like, yeah, it's on IMDb. All right. But they seemed cool, I guess. So I did my homework and I went to their website. I found directors that had their movies through them, and I just started messaging them on Facebook. And I'm just like, hey, like, they emailed us this, like, can you like shine a new light for me? Because this is our first feature, so like, I'm not trying to, like you were just saying, I'm not trying to get screwed over here. And so basically, two of them said, yeah, they're a good company, blah, blah, blah. And then the third one said, yeah, they're being sued by all their filmmakers right now because they have no money, they're not paying. And I'm like, oh, okay, red flag, that's cool. We're just gonna go ahead and skip that one. And that's really cool. And then of course, like we just, we submitted the film to a bunch of different acquisition agents, and I don't know if we can say who it is yet, but we did sign like 2 days ago.
Well, that's the key. I think it's an acquisition agent.
Yeah.
Way to go. Because these distributors won't even talk to anybody unless it's through an acquisition agent.
Yeah, luckily, yeah. So we were able to avoid finding like the sales agent because of course they get like 10%. But yeah, with us though, it's like do your homework. Don't the first deal that comes through, ask some filmmakers that work with them. They're on Facebook. And
It is on Facebook.
Yeah, they will tell you.
If it's unsolicited, I mean, you know, if they come to you,
Yeah,
really look into it heavy because there's some predators out there that are always looking for.
all we
You
have
know, they
is
want the starstruck people, you know.
yeah, it's like all we have was a poster. Like I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, that's all we have. We
Yeah.
have a Porsche car with us, so that's cool.
Probably we'll talk after.
Anybody else? Questions from the audience? We've got an audience we can open up questions for. Go ahead.
This is for anybody who wants to answer. How important would you say music is in the movies that you make?
Say music.
Yeah.
100%. Justin Miller, right? This guy. He was probably like when he did our score for Entropy, and we had and Petra right here. She did our effects, amazing, and she recommended us to Justin. Said I got this friend. He's amazing. He does music, and to us, like John Carpenter's a huge influence for me, and like Dario Argento type of films. Like the music to me is half the film. That's really when I first talked to Justin. I was like, you know, music will make or break the film, and we have. And what we made was a very like John Carpenter kind of body horror kind of film. So I really wanted that aesthetic and that feel. And without music, without his amazing music, the movie would have worked, in my opinion. So to me, music, 100%.
Yeah, I think we got so used to like cutting the movie and making it
productions, clearly that is a lost art with some folks. I mean, where the music overpowers the film, overpowers the dialogue, or nowadays, your soundtrack, you've got your dialogue track and you mix everything else in. If you don't mix that right, a lot of times you don't even understand what the person's saying. Even if you hear them, you can't, so it's, I think the music goes along with it as well. We were lucky to have Storm because all of our music was given to us. We had a rock group in New York that the guy that was the subject of the film, he says, yeah, I've got these guys, they're like political punk rockers, and they were great. It was perfect music for us. They did a version of the Star Spangled Banner. It's beautiful. And it was basically, they said, oh yeah. Whatever you need, just let us know what you're using, and here's where you can go get it. And then I needed some, I wanted to set the war footage that we had in the VHS transfers to piano music. I was looking for a particular field, and I just happened to be on YouTube, and I was checking out some music tracks, and this guy had this stuff. I said, this is made for us. So I contacted him, and again, do the legal stuff. I mean, don't release your movie without it. And he was very nice. He said, yeah, you're welcome to use it, just give me a credit. That's all I ask. And I said, yeah, I'll even throw in a copy of the movie. How about that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's funny, there's a lot of stuff out there you can get for asking that sometimes is the perfect film.
Anybody else?
Everyone's favorite movie. That's a good thing.
All genres?
All time.
Any genre.
John Carpenter's The Thing. Yeah, probably The Thing.
All that jazz.
The Thing or
I don't even have one favorite movie, but I guess my favorite movies are top 3 if I had to put it of all time was 300 by Zack Snyder, 2006. The new Blade Runner 2049 is just beyond beautiful. And honestly, I'm going to have to go with a 2005 horror film called The Descent. You guys heard of it?
Oh,
The Descent, yeah, it's a British horror film.
Yes.
So I'd have to say those are my top 3.
Oh, we're going to do 3.
You said one.
Throw Alien in as a horror film, man. I think the original Alien is brilliantly done.
Yeah.
And 2001: A Space Odyssey. Okay.
I don't have one.
You don't have.
What's one you really like?
What's the one movie that, whenever it comes on, you always make time to watch? I could ask that.
Oh, it's Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
You can go that way as Wonder Woman.
Yeah, because I mean, we all have those particular films. It's like it's on, and I should be saving some of. No, never mind. I'm gonna watch this.
At our house, though, we have to rotate what we watch on Saturday. I have to pay my siblings like $5 so I can keep on watching one. I was like, okay, I know it's your turn. It's $5, and I'm getting away.
Anybody else?
Yes, I would like to hear you guys talk about storing footage for editing and like keeping it organized and stuff like that.
Oh,
That's not my part.
You don't do the editing.
I do edit, but I'll
So you mean like
somebody
how
else to do the rest.
Organize the edit, or organize the footage, or like putting it in an actual timeline?
Yeah, like organizing the footage, because lately I've heard a lot of people, they kind of outsource the editing or something. They send it like maybe overseas to edit, but how do you organize it so people will know how to edit or whatnot?
So with us, at least with me and Scotty, we edit our own stuff. But so the way we keep ours organized is, one, don't underestimate the slate runner on set, because they're going to make your life hella easy in the edit. Like people that skimp on the slate, like you're gonna make your life so hard. So basically what I'll do is, at the end of every day, I'll have my folders organized by like, first I'll do like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, because we have a shoot schedule. So I'll know day 1 what all the scenes are, but inside that folder, I'll have like scene 3A, and then like the next folder 3B, or sorry, 4A or whatever, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5. But within those folders will be my roles, so A, B, C, D. And then inside those folders, I'll have video and then my audio. And then I'll label my audio and my video based off what scene and what role it is. That way when I drag it in Premiere, but now we're going to DaVinci, but when I drag it in Premiere, when I'm pulling it through my timeline, it's already named exactly what I need it to be. And all my folders are completely organized. So I know like scene 3, I'll have all my roles in there, and I'll have all my audio tracks, all my video. And that's kind of how I stay organized. That way, like, everything is clearly in one spot, or
And it's laborious, but it's worth it.
yes.
It's worth it.
Oh, it takes forever. Like, you're gonna be like 4 to 5 hours a night to figure out what you shot.
Yeah.
You know, just organizing it. But it's gonna make your life so much easier as soon as it's done.
Yeah, and if you're editing, you want to, you would rather be able to concentrate on putting the film together rather than spending a lot of time figuring out where's this.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's the way to do it. Absolutely.
And when you're shooting too, this kind of comes into play too, is what I recommend is dump your footage as soon as possible, because cards will corrupt. We're shooting an anthology right now, and we shot 8 hours on one of the segments, and the card corrupted. So restart, start all over. Let's go, guys. So what turned in what should have been like a 15-hour shoot was a little over 20 hours, which is typical for us, I feel like. Entropy with a 24-hour shoot day was one of the days, so you know. But yeah, it's a dump your footage as soon as possible. Just keep it organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, when I look at you guys, that is more questions.
I do have a question for you two guys. What was it like making a movie during the pandemic situation right now? We shot the movie last June.
So yeah, so we're supposed to start shooting Entropy like 4 days before the world shut down. And so naturally I'm thinking like, well, we should probably still film. And so I called everyone up, and all I took was one person saying they weren't comfortable, and we postponed. So that's what we did. So we had a couple people who were like, they're a little uncomfortable, saying, I totally get it, we'll postpone it. Luckily, again, all the locations is family, so it's not like my permits are going up or anything. So we waited till like the world reopened, and then we shot the movie quickly. But there was a conversation that I had with everyone before we started shooting, like, you guys are all smart, right? Like, you didn't go out and do crazy shit, get COVID. And everyone was cool, everyone was comfortable, and we had a good shoot. Everyone was just, luckily, a lot of the shoot, there wasn't really anyone we didn't know. So there was that trust amongst friends, if you will, that like everyone was smart, everyone was safe, and there wasn't really any outside factors like, I don't know this person, they maybe went to a club the night before we got COVID. Like, it just wasn't like that. So it was just shooting COVID, within COVID didn't really affect us too much, because besides having to push back until it reopened like a month and a half later, I mean, everyone was comfortable on set, no one was uncomfortable, we still got all our scenes. There wasn't really much of a concern that like people were uncomfortable, so it turned out pretty good.
Actually, I have a question. You've talked a little bit about writing and stuff and your process, and is there, whenever you're working, when you're writing, is there times where you just have to step back? What's your do you spend an entire day, or is it sometimes you take breaks? How does that work?
I always like to take breaks and refresh, because you're really going to have a headache. It's really going to mess up your head if you overthink or think way too hard. Just always refresh, take a break, even if you got to have the patience. And even though you really want to know what you want to write next, just focus on other things in your life too. But it'll all come back to your head. It will. And that's like I said, stop what you're doing, go back and write it. So yeah, that's what I love doing. Just make sure you take a step back.
I'm one of those guys that that mode, all I have to do is put the characters out there and they tell me the story. So I mean, the dialogue part is easy. Because, yeah, I mean, what's tricky about dialogue is making sure it sounds like dialogue. Because some of my early scripts is like, people don't talk that way. So, but, you know, if you know your characters and stuff, a lot of times they'll tell the story for you. And it's just, so it's just a matter of not even thinking, it's sort of like acting. For me, it's just, you know, once they yell action, you're there. People yell cut and say, you know, do you remember what you did? It's like, no, I don't have a clue. I really don't. I'm one of those actors where I was like that on stage. The minute I got off stage out of the lights, I could not have told you what I just did. I mean, it's just an instinct thing. So, you know, maybe it's because I'm an old guy. I don't know. Well, that's just, yeah, I started out there. I was just, my first script, 3 days locked in my bedroom, and then I came out and I had a finished script. And one that I had to do very little too. After that, it was pretty much all fine too. I think everybody's a little different.
So,
I wish I could take a step back. Which is probably what's kind of got so mad at me. I'm obsessive. I can't work on editing while we're shooting, and if there's an issue, I'll obsess with it until it's done. If it's in editing, if it's in whatever, and I'll bother the hell out of it until it's finished. I mean, for me, I love writing, so I think like you're saying, everyone's process is different. For me, I don't have to have like some special ritual or anything like that, or like I can do it anytime, sort of any place. Sometimes it's just I'll be watching a movie and then I'll just kind of quickly tab and bring up some word or something, type in a couple things, get back to it. And as some people describe different writers as like architects or gardeners, or like an architect plans everything out, and the gardener can just sort of like plant some seeds and see where it goes. And I feel like I'm like combination of both, where I have sort of like, I'd like to get to this point by the end of this chapter, but we'll just see where the characters take me in the meantime, and just go with these cool ideas I have. So.
Well, I agree with you, because mine's not like, what, lock yourself 3 days and not see the world. No, mine is like more, like right now, I'm sitting there looking at you, and I was like, oh, that's the reason that I have this is when I put my notes in it. And there's a few times, of course, you know, when you go to take care of some business and ideas comes up. And one time I was in the shower, I was like, oh, and of course, you know, there's shampoo in my eyes. I was like, oh, no, I'm gonna wipe it off, and I'm gonna wipe it down. And then, you know, you just never know where your inspirations come. And we travel a lot, and then we were like in the middle of dinner, and here I am pulling out my napkins, and by the time we get back to, you know, our place, I have all these notes that's coming in, and it's like, say, once you have all that together, let's go with it. Let's see where it's going. But then there's, you know, a writer that I ran into, like, with him, it's like, can I see what you have? I'm like, nope, I locked myself for a whole month, and you won't see it. Like, oh, well, this client wants this, I need, you know, coming in, and with me, though, it's like, wherever the wind blows, I have ideas coming out, and we're going to shoot it. And that's how Dawn the Angel came off. Just a couple people, after we sat at a coffee shop, and we were talking like, hey, Molly, you want to do this, you want to do that? I said, yeah, what do you come up with? The whole time I'm talking with them, I was like, hey, this is what I see. And they're like, you got an idea already? I was like, yeah, let's shoot this, and I have people in mind who's going to have, and everything else, and we run with it. And I sent it to Kevin, and Kevin's like, you came out this was drinking coffee? I was like, yeah, what do you think? And he's like, that's from a coffee. I said, yeah, what do you think? He's like, it's pretty good. So, you know, just, everybody's different.
Buy the woman espresso. Anybody else? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Well, we talked about our first film and then a whole lot more. So we're live from the Something Wicked Film Festival, and we will see you in 2022.